The story begins with a blue-haired girl named Hina, who is currently watching her mother being swallowed into the abyss by some dark hands coming out of the ground. She is being taken to the underworld because the number on her hand has now reached 0, so she's not allowed to live any longer. While being taken underground, she gives her daughter a special dark orb with the number 1000 inside it, and after, she begs Hina to take it, telling her that she must find the guy called the Legendary Ace. And so, Hina promises to her mother that she will find the Legendary Ace no matter what. We are then taken a few more years into the future, and Hina has now grown up a bit, and she now lives in a post-apocalyptic town called Alika. In this world, everyone has a number attached to their body since they were born, and everyone's number represents something different about that person's life. For example, how many times you made a delicious meal for someone, how many times you won a duel match, how many times you were kind to someone, or even how many times you were rejected by a girl. In the beautiful town of Alika, Hina is seen talking to some of her friends. They are discussing a mysterious man called the Legendary Ace, and Hina tells them that her mother insisted that she finds him no matter what, as that was the last thing she ever said to her before her number dropped to a 0. The girls tell Hina that the Legendary Ace guy sounds familiar, as they were told stories about him when they were younger. Apparently, he was a part of the warriors known as Aces from around about 1000 years ago. While talking, a strange-looking masked figure approaches them, making the girls scream and run away. The man introduces himself as Lickbat, and he starts looking at Hina's number as it was placed right on the side of her thigh. He begs Hina for money and tries getting a closer look at her number, so she kicks him and runs away as fast as she could. However, Lick instantly chases after her, calling her the most beautiful woman ever, although Hina is completely freaked out and screams for help. Just then, Lick gets kicked in the face by a woman called Nana. Nana apologizes to Hina for Lick's behavior, as she seems to know who Lick is already, and after, she invites Hina into her restaurant to try some of her food as a kind gesture. After making food for Hina, Nana asks who she is, so Hina introduces herself to Nana. Hina also writes her name down in Chinese writing, which impresses Nana. Nana asks Hina where she's from, and Hina tells her that she originally lived up in the mountains with her mother, but one day, her mother was dragged into the ground, and she didn't understand why. This is when Nana tells Hina that her mother must have been taken into the abyss as she dropped to a 0. She explains that in this world, everything is controlled by these numbers attached to people's bodies, and the number will mean something specific about your life. Nana tells Hina that her number, which is 77, represents how many times people told her her food was delicious, and after Nana asks Hina what her number is and what it means, Hina tells her that her number is 441, and it represents the distance that she's walked. Nana is in shock that she's walked nearly 45,000 kilometers, and here Lick tries getting a closer look, so Nana throws him flying into the trees. Nana explains that there is also another important rule in this world, which is that you cannot disobey another person who has a higher count than you, and you must do exactly what they say if their number happens to be higher than yours. After, Nana asks Hina why she's so keen on walking everywhere, and doesn't understand how she's traveled this amount of distance already at her age. Hina then tells Nana that the reason for all her walking is because she was told by her mother to find a very special person who is known as the Legendary Ace. Nana is taken aback by this and tells Hina that she's also heard of the Legendary Ace, a famous warrior who carries an iconic blade with a shining white star next to his number. However, those are only ancient myths, and supposedly all the aces are now long gone. But Hina disagrees and said that the last of the aces is still alive and is living right here in this town, which is the whole reason she came here. Nana still thinks that Hina is wasting her time, so Hina decides to leave her restaurant. But just then, a group of serious-looking fellows pull up to the bar, and one of them calls out to Hina, asking if he's the man she's been looking for. Hina takes one look at the man who introduces himself as Sergeant Davy, and he happens to have a shining white star next to his number, which symbolizes the Legendary Ace. Hina is in shock, and Nana tries to warn her about Sergeant Davy. But before she could say anything, Hina took off with the man, and Sergeant Davy instructed Nana not to disrespect the military officers of the town ever again, otherwise she will be subject to arrest. After, Hina is taken to the surgeon's office, where he starts to touch her in certain places and wants to get closer with her, calling her the most beautiful girl he's ever seen in this town. However, Hina doesn't know why the Legendary Ace is acting like this, and after, she pulls out the magical orb that her mother gave to her, automatically stunning all the guards. Just then, Sergeant Davy gets up and demands Hina to hand it over. At that moment, Hina tells the sergeant that she cannot give him the orb as it was the last thing that her mother gave her, and she only wants an explanation as to what it is. Hearing this makes Davy super mad, so he slashes his sword at Hina and turns into a complete madman, demanding she hands over the orb. But after she thinks about the rules of the city again like Nana said, and orders Davy to stand down because she has a higher number than him. After that, Davy immediately stands down and was surprised how a commoner girl like her understood the rules of the city, and he had no choice but to follow her orders. But right then, he smiles again with a devious grin, drawing for his sword, and tells Hina he will bet all his stars against hers as Davy challenges her to a star stake. Hina gets worried and asks him what a star stake is, and that's when he reveals that it's basically a duel match, where a person challenges you to a 1v1 and you bet your own stars against one another. Also, when someone challenges you to a star stake, you either accept it or die, because if you refuse, you will be automatically taken into the abyss and the demonic hands will pull you into the ground. After hearing this, Hina is scared out of her mind seeing those hands, so she regretfully accepts, afraid as she's not a fighter. After, Surgeon Asshole throws poor Hina out the window and tells her to stop fighting, otherwise it will only get worse. After some time, she gives up, begging Sergeant Davy to stop and that she's not fighting anymore. So ultimately, Davy wins the bet, and then the hands come out of the ground to take Hina's number away and adding it on to Sergeant Davy's count, going from 320 to 760 points in an instant. After looking back at Hina's count, she's now only at a 1, and Sergeant Davy makes fun of her low number and warns her that if she doesn't give him the special orb, otherwise known as the ballot, he will challenge her again and she will be taken into the abyss. Hina begins sobbing and asks him why the legendary ace would do such a thing, as he was supposed to be a famous hero. But Sergeant Davy calls Hina a naive little brat and reveals that he was never the legendary ace. He pulls the shiny white sticker off of his face and tells Hina that the person she is trying to find no longer exists, as the aces were all dead, all while laughing in her face. He tries grabbing the orb again and says he will start another star stake, but just then the mysterious and masked figure appears again and warns the sergeant that he will bet his stars against him if he doesn't leave Hina alone. The sergeant is stunned by his entrance and asks how many stars he wants to bet, and right then Licht shows him his count, which is currently a -999, so Sergeant Davy starts laughing loudly, calling him a pathetic mouth breather for trying to duel him. Sergeant Davy calls Licht a dumb little peasant and says why in the hell would he duel somebody with a negative count, as he wouldn't even gain any points from him. Sergeant Davy's henchmen then start to whisper and discuss how Licht has a huge negative count which has gone below 0, but he still hasn't been taken into the abyss, which is impossible. However, because his count is so low, Sergeant Davy finds it incredibly insulting that such a low number would challenge him to a duel. So he immediately draws for his blade and tries killing Licht, letting off as many slashes and blows as he can. Licht gets sent flying back and Hina screams out trying to stop Davy from hurting him anymore. But Davy was having the time of his life when all of a sudden they tell Davy that this guy must be the real ace, otherwise he would have been taken into the abyss by now, so clearly Licht's number is being cancelled out somehow. After hearing this, Davy stops slashing, and this is when Licht reveals his real count and his second number, which is a level 5700 on the side of his blade, along with a white shining star. Davy insists that Licht must be using a sticker and that he's just an imposter like him. All the enemies proceed to charge at Licht with their swords, so he tells Hina to close her eyes. And this is when Licht uses his special super flash ability, swiftly dodging all the guards, and his ability makes the ground crack and takes out all of the soldiers. The sergeant is shocked and can't believe he's actually challenging the real legendary ace, and Mr. Davy Boy is getting worried like a scared little girl, seeing a real ace's powers for the first time. Licht stands up to him and tells Davy to give back the numbers he stole from Hina, but this makes Davy mad again, as no one in the city would ever stand up to Davy, as he's the leader of the military forces. So he tries one last time to fight back against Licht, using all his strength and sword abilities, as Davy is known as the best swordsman in the town. But Licht simply dodges all his attacks with ease and shows off his incredible power to Davy. At this moment, Nana was serving food, and the customer asks what the hell was going on back there, and this is when Nana tells the old fella that they are currently watching a legendary ace. She tells him that aces were a clan of 10 mysterious beings who ended the Waste War 300 years ago. But the leader of the aces was known as the legendary ace. All the aces had 2 numbers on them, and the legendary ace had one which marked how many times girls rejected him, and the other number represented how many foes he had slain in battle during the war. After winning the duel, the All Thing tries to take his number, and it grabs Hina, attempting to increase her count. Licht checks that she's okay, and although she's relieved he's safe, she cries tears of joy for finding the man her mother talked about. Noticing the soldiers watching, Licht changes his expression and takes the orb from her. His personality twists, and he tells her that he can finally afford a Ferrari with this money, so he doesn't need some ugly girl anymore, but rather than leaving her empty-handed, he says that he'll give her something in return, throwing her an old toy as a souvenir. Hina wonders why her mom would ever tell her to find the ace if he was going to treat her this way. But Licht reveals there are many aces, and it just so happens he wasn't the one she was looking for. With the sun setting, Hina heads back to town, and Nana wonders what happened to her and Licht, but she breaks down crying. He had taken the only thing Hina's mother left for her, and wondered what she will do from now on. Nana looks at the toy and feels something off about its weight, telling Hina to hold on to it just for a little longer. The toy begins moving around and explodes, revealing the ballad inside. Owning a ballad is the worst offense in this country, Nana explains, so she's sure Licht was just trying to protect her. He had packed up and was ready to leave town, but Hina sprinted to try and catch up to him. His only way of protecting her was to pretend to steal the ballad and escape the nation, so when she finally saw him on the carriage, she screamed and begged for him to wait. But Licht told the driver to continue moving. Hina begs him to stop because she's been looking for him her entire life. There wasn't anyone else in this cold world after her mother left, and she traveled for years feeling lonely, especially when she saw how other kids shared every night with their parents. She was afraid she would be this lonely forever. But when she finally met him and Nana, it was the first time in her life that she felt happiness again. All the moments of laughter, she wants to share them with him and calls him a liar for breaking his promise. She screamed the words, "I hate you," and his number went to -1,000. After the sun finally set, a soldier appeared and saw she was hanging on the ballad, but promised that he would keep her secret safe. In fact, he was here to thank her because he has finally located the ace, the most wanted human being in this entire nation. The following day, a girl called Lynn discovers the news of the wanted Licht, but wants to hang out flyers to the rest of the village. She tries taking care of the village however she can, and based on the number of times she's helped others, her count rises. Pele wonders why she's helping others if her number only increases when they need serious help, so he tells her to go back to doing something productive, like finding the wanted criminal. As she continues walking around, she thinks it would be impossible to find someone with a dumb mask like that, but she lays her eyes on the Pudding Man and immediately tries taking his mask off. The Pudding Man says that this mask is completely different from Licht's because he made sure to change it yesterday. Lynn realizes he's right and apologizes, but before she walks away, Pudding Man tells her that he's just wearing a mask because of how ugly he is and shows her that he has been dumped by 1,000 girls. His only wish in life is to go on a single date before he passes away, so Pele begs her to help this man because it might actually increase her count for once. She tries offering her hand to Pudding Boy, and her count instantly increases. They spend the day drinking together, and eventually they make it onto a dangerous bridge, but Pele encourages them to just cross it already. Carefully, they take each step, but the bridge begins shaking and Licht realizes this is the opportunity of a lifetime. He tries some perverted stuff and notices that Pele is the best wingman in this entire world. But the lock underneath Lynn breaks and Licht barely clutches to save her. She looks into his face and realizes she's finally met the demon slayer blacksmith of her dreams. After all that, Lynn wonders if she's done with this date, but Pudding Man begins crying because he doesn't want it to be his last date. So Pele encourages her to give him the best thing in this world, the lap pillow. Her count instantly goes up once more. Pele thinks that she really is a bother because the guy in front of her is the wanted criminal they've been looking for. She's glanced over the fact that he has a negative count and realizes he must be a ballot holder, just like the person on the wanted poster. She uncovers his identity, but Licht manages to take her sword away. But Lynn nearly blows him out of existence after countless kicks. Lynn says that she can't live with a criminal, but wishes to have at least 3 kids and live a long life with him as a good father. After hearing about kids, however, Licht decided to go buy some milk and left some pudding for Pele for being the greatest wingman. Meanwhile, Hina serves customers at Nana's store, but a lieutenant appears at one of her tables and asks her about Licht's location. She tells him that she ain't no snitch, so he restrains her and asks her one more time to reveal the truth. The lieutenant gets up, telling his soldiers to head west, and destroys her entire shop. As the dust settled, Hina marveled at Licht's power, and Anna explained it was the ballad's doing. The lieutenant must have one. Meanwhile, back in Lynn's village, Lynn wishes she'd caught Licht, so a man offers to aid her. They run past a grocery store where he notices Lynn seems to be arguing with her boyfriend. When the townsfolk hear she has a boyfriend, they chase after her, but Licht wonders why she'd act romantically if they weren't dating. Amidst the chaos, Licht slips away. Across town, Hina pleads with Nana to help find Licht before the authorities do, but Nana says they can't until they fix the carriage. Licht senses something strange about the town. Despite a wanted criminal on the loose, it's oddly peaceful. Everyone circles around Lynn for help, and even a mother begs Lynn to name her daughter for her. The baker comes screaming, showing her that a kid was trying to steal once again, but Lynn tries to protect him, saying she will force him to do volunteer work, and begs the man to reconsider. She promises the child that she can try to take care of him if he's hungry next time, and he begins crying. Pele suggests that she looks for Mr. Pudding before he gets away, but Lynn says that she can't ignore what's important to people, and Licht finally realizes the source of peace in this village. So he jumps down and offers to repair the doll for the girl, handing it back to her. While they continued chasing after him, Licht noticed something was off and tried to protect Lynn from the spikes piercing from the ground. The commander appeared and stepped on the girl's toy, but even though Pele rushed to greet him, Lin was too worried about Licht's health. The soldiers surrounded her in a circle, and the lieutenant told Licht to stop playing dead before he pierced him again. With his cover blown, he takes off his pudding outfit. They begin slashing towards him, but even though he evades all the attacks, he tries saving Lin from getting caught in the crossfire and blows all the soldiers away with his sword. Jael says he will handle them, but Licht prefers not to be manhandled. Lin tries stepping in the way, but Jael commands her to recite the mission bestowed upon them. So she uses this opportunity to teach us about the rules of the show. Ballots contain mysterious abilities that activate when a person holds on to them, and the military is the only ones legally allowed to carry them. Despite the apparent power difference, with Licht's count at 5,700 compared to Jael's 900, Licht believes the fight should be easy and urges Jael to flee. However, Jael unleashes his abilities, causing iron spikes to erupt from the ground. Licht tries to dodge, even scaling walls, but Jael's spikes block his path. With no other choice, Licht disappears, darting around Jael at incredible speeds. He seizes the chance to escape by leaping away, but Jael outpaces him, crushing him with an iron pillar. Licht is surprised by Jael's strength, but realizes Jael must be concealing a higher count. Jael explains his determination to punish evil himself and reveals his true count, 12,500, as pillars of steel encircle them. Licht realizes he might be in a lot of trouble, and Jael prepares to cast his iron fist once more. But Licht barely manages to parry it off his body. As Licht continued trying to hold off the giant fist, a smaller one flanked him from the side to crush his core, but he quickly regained footing and began moving faster than before. However, even with his new speed, he was too slow for Jael, and he used his ability to knock Licht's sword into the sky. Without a weapon, Jael prepares to spar with his hand-to-hand combat technique, but notices that Licht got in the same stance as him. Jael found an opening opportunity and threw him off balance after kicking him to the side. The sword finally fell into his grasp, but he decided to throw it back to Licht, saying that he's too slow already. After being insulted, Licht decided to go all out and leaped into the sky to prepare his ultimate blow. However, Jael wasn't afraid and cast his iron fist of the sky since he's no longer able to dodge. Before Licht is about to land, Jael launches a devastating blow to crush his confidence and restrains him with his iron. Licht begs him to let him go, but Jael promises he won't. Jael thinks everything's a mystery about this man but wonders how he's a part of the military. After sparring against him, he noticed his martial arts were the special techniques taught only to the supreme soldiers. The military had spent countless resources on his capture, but Jael thinks he's pathetic with a mere 5,700 count. Licht refuses to snitch on the homies, saying he's not an OP. So Jael summons a whip to squeeze the information out of him. As he casted his whip, however, Lin shielded Licht from the blow and said that he's not as bad as he may seem. He's been helping her all along, but Jael says he's heard about her attempts to build a park for the kids and thinks her efforts are worthless. Just because the town is peaceful doesn't mean she can neglect her duties and calls her useless. Lin tears up, saying that her superior is right and will apologize, but Licht tells her not to apologize. He tells Jael that he hasn't cut his iron because he didn't want to damage Lin's town, and after destroying the cups, Jael realizes that Licht must have been hiding his true count this entire time. He prepares to unleash his true power and rushes forward with his fist. The energy emanating from their clash destroys the entire earth beneath them, and Licht yells that Lin isn't being lazy because the town is peaceful. It's the opposite. The town is peaceful only because she isn't lazy, so he commands Jael to apologize to her. The cliff begins falling apart, and Lin falls down amidst the chaos. Jael rushes with all his speed towards her, but Licht flashes forward 10 times faster and manages to clutch onto Lin. Jael manages to catch up to them, and Licht throws Lin towards him so he can save her. This was his opportunity for retaliation, but he decides to just leap back up towards the village and bring Lin to safety. He sees the flyer that Lin's been working on and understands Licht's words now. So with his power, he creates a playground from his steel. He tells Lin that those foundations will only last while he's around, so he's going to give her 3 days to plaster the foundations before they head after Licht together. His number goes down after betraying one of his convictions, but he wonders what that man's true strength is. A week later, Licht began running out of food, but Hina finally found him. Using all 3 of his brain cells, he began chirping like a crow, but Hina grabbed him and said the only reason he's wearing the beak is to overcompensate for his persuasion. She told him to stop already and took off his mask, saying she would never mistake him for anyone else. Nana calls them over so they can enjoy food. Nana punches Lich away, saying he needs to work if he wants to get some money, so he should gather some firewood with Hina. They began gathering the firewood together, but Hina called him a liar for breaking his promise to her. However, she shows him the lunch she's packed for him so they could keep their promise. Licht tries apologizing for his actions, but she thinks this is sort of like a date. As he finished her sentence, a plane came flying from above, and a red-haired girl tried her hardest to make it fly. Licht noticed she was headed directly to a ravine just when she thought she was finally flying. The plane nosedived straight down. So Licht jumped off the cliff to grab her and leaped off the plane just before they crashed. Hina tells her to wait, so the girl introduces herself as Palmo, saying she feels like she can achieve her dreams with them inside her hut. She shows them her 9th prototype, saying that this will be her best attempt yet. Throughout her life, her only dream was to fly in the air, and thinks it will improve everyone's lives when people gain the ability to fly. She wishes it would just work once, so Licht heads over to look at her blueprints, spots the mistakes she's been making. Research into flight is forbidden in this nation, and the penalty is death. Still, Palmo thinks that some dreams are worth dying for because without dreams, living on would be pointless. Licht thinks she might be right, so he decides to take the ink pen and fix her blueprints. She sees the shape and thinks it would finally solve all of her mistakes. The plane was finally ready and promises that she'll be able to fly at this time. In the distance, Licht spots an army advancing towards her, and Palmo realizes that she's finally been uncovered. Licht draws his sword and prepares to face off against the army, but at the last second, he slashes her plane down to destroy it. Palmo thinks she understands, and the soldiers come to inform her that they've heard of flight testing. However, she shows them the debris, claiming she was just trying to fix her old windmill. After the soldiers left, Palmo knew she'd be executed even if her plane worked, because the witnesses would hunt her down for the rest of her life. Licht thought this would be the safest option because she can always try again, and Hina said she would stay by her side until she finally made it. But as nice as those words were, Palmo revealed that she would never be able to try again, and her count dropped to 0. Her count was based on how many times she achieved her dreams, and since it started at 10, she has failed every single attempt until this last one. She tells them not to worry, and Hina begs someone to help her, remembering the day when her mother was sucked away. Hina tries running to save Palmo, but the hands knock her away. They continued rushing forward towards Licht, and although he managed to parry them off, a mysterious electricity shocked his body, and memories began flooding into his brain. Hina begged for someone to help her, but Palmo told them not to cry. Getting sent to the abyss isn't guaranteed death, so she's sure that she's going to a different world instead. And in that world, she promises that she will make sure her dream comes true, and feels like she'll be able to meet them once more. She bids them farewell, and the all thing disappears. Hina collapses but promises that she will meet her again one day. Licht collapsed next to her, and she looked into his eye, seeing a count of 001 engraved inside. The following morning, Licht sees Hina hanging onto him, and remembers feeling powerless to save Palmo before she was sucked away. All he's ever been able to accomplish was clean up after someone else's dream. Hina eventually woke up and saw that Licht had disappeared, but after looking around the tent, she found him washing his face inside the town. The yearly festival was being held, but Licht was the only one with a gloomy expression on his face. She tells him to cheer up already, so he tells her he's cheerful and begins his perverted activities. Lin screams as she's finally found him and wishes to thank him. Hina wonders who this girl is, and Lin goes on to introduce herself, saying they dated back in her town. Hina introduces herself back and says they've been traveling together, while he looks up at her skirt. Licht knows he's about to deal with one massive headache, so he begins bolting away. But Nana comes to destroy every last bit of his hopes. She has developed a contest to solve all their issues. They'll be having a Gordon Ramsay-style cook-off, and they've tied down their hostage so they can feed him any type of food they can think of. Both of them get into their attire, and Lin scores the town for fresh vegetables. The merchant thinks it's admirable how much of a cute wife she is and begins sweet-talking to her to buy more of his products because he's a real hustler. At the same time, Hina gathers wild mushrooms, and a giant bear begins rushing towards her. But it had fallen for her trap, and the poor bear realizes it's over for him. She dissects the body in front of everyone, and the entire town is shocked by her abilities. Lin's meal is ready, and she presents it to her husband. Licht tastes the food. He tells her it tasted worse than anything he has eaten. The men are impressed that his compliments worked, but Hina isn't out of the running yet, and she presents him with her dinner. He thinks this looks straight out of Jeffrey Dahmer's basement, so he takes a bite. It's disgusting, he says, but Pele wants to take a taste, and thinks it's the best texture he's ever felt in his life. She's glad that her food was finally able to put a smile on his face, and he thanks her for preparing such a delicious meal. However, the contest isn't over, and Nana goes on to make him pick the winner. He stares at both of them, but Jael comes to interrupt the festivities. He wonders why Lin is dressing like a useless maid instead of arresting him, but Licht shows him that he's already been restrained but will be making his leave now. Jael prepares to fight against him, and his spikes destroy the entire city's flooring. Licht draws his unreasonably long sword and rushes towards Jael and evades every single one of the spikes rushing towards him. Jael smashes his fist into the ground and wonders why Licht was holding back his real power during their last duel. He pushes him backwards and rushes towards Licht, but destroys the fountain behind him instead as he launches an uppercut straight towards Licht. He stopped himself in the last instance since Licht hadn't been evading. Nana yells at them to stop since they have destroyed the entire city and tells them to clean up their mess. Both of them put their weapons away after they fix the flooring. Jael and Licht enjoyed dinner together. On his way to find Licht, Jael had stumbled upon a town that had been ravaged, and all of the villagers had already been annihilated. Teal located a giant void where a lake used to be, and the survivor struggles to walk towards them. He tells them that on a peaceful day in the village, their lake was replaced with a giant hole, and from the depths of it, a giant green demon with 6 wings started flying and began firing bullets of fire towards them. Jael thinks it's more likely that it was a ballot holder responsible for the damage and wonders what type of ballot holder would be able to fly, but realizes that he knows a single man who could be capable of flight. Back in the present, Licht tries handing Jael a drink, but Jael tells him that he doesn't have time for games. His iron activates once more, and he points his spear directly into Licht's eyes, informing him of the town that was destroyed. The one responsible was a demon of the abyss, and Jael knows that Licht can't fly, but he knows that he must have valuable information. Nana suggests they try to drink some apple cider vinegar, so they can have a conversation at ease, which gives Jael a genius idea. He places all of his life savings on the table and orders every bit of intoxicant she has. Licht calls him a perv for trying to make him drink it, but Jael is more shocked with Lin's outfits. Their bottle downing game begins and Jael tries prying information out of him, but Licht tells him to drink faster, so they decide to down the bottles first. Their anger grows faster than a Karen asking to see the manager, and the girls wonder if this was truly the best approach. However, Nana is enjoying all this business and thinks she might just give them a special service for all their money. Meanwhile, the juice starts messing with Lin's thoughts, and she realizes that she won't be the best girl of this show, but was at least glad to have experienced all those moments with Licht. The only thing Nana cares about is her business, but suddenly the ground began quaking, and Pele revealed that a giant hole appeared in this town as well. When Jael arrived at the scene, the survivors screamed that everyone was about to be annihilated, so Jael rushed to make everyone evacuate. Licht realizes he's heard this noise before and tells Jael to force everyone to retreat. Jael realizes that Licht must know something after all, and the demon begins appearing from the abyss. Licht stares with tearful eyes, wondering how those things were still able to fly after the waste wars. The giant helicopter takes aim and begins firing down, but Jael attempts to defend the villagers from its blows before it appears to evacuate. However, it begins flanking them from the back and fires a missile towards Jael. In the last possible moment, he had put up a barrier to defend them, and Licht commands everyone to evacuate immediately, but Jael says that he has no right to take command. However, Licht reveals his military ranking and says he will be taking command as a colonel. The helicopter swerves back once more and begins firing towards Licht, but he evades every one of the attacks as he rushes towards the helicopter. It launches a missile towards the ground, but Licht goes on to slash it down and rushes towards the sky. He bounces off the pillar to try launching higher, but the All-Thing arms begin to surround him and knock him toward the ground. They attempt to reach towards the helicopter, but with the height limit, the helicopter flies above all of them as it continues firing towards the ground. Licht attempts to jump off the pillars once more, but the All-Thing prevents him from getting closer. He attacks one of them. However, the same mysterious electricity shocks his body. Hina begs them to assist Licht, but Jael reveals that it would be impossible because the military would be executed if they were to attack the All-Thing. As Licht continued enduring the pain to slash against the Abyss arms, it knocked him into the ground. Hina begs someone to help him because all he's trying to do is save others. So Jael takes off his glasses and asks Lin where he might have put them. She tells him that she has no idea what he's talking about, and he goes on to say that he can't see a thing without his glasses and casts a pillar straight towards the arms. He casts 3 more iron pillars towards the All-Thing, saying he doesn't know if he's breaking the law since he can't see a thing. Lin says her eyesight suddenly got worse too and launches an attack towards the All-Thing, inspiring the rest of the army to take her lead. Licht sees the opportunity they'd created for him, so he rushes forward to slash the helicopter. But what his eyes see shock every bone of his body. Bullets begin raining down, which causes the helicopter to crash. Then a woman suddenly appears aiming a gun at Jael. Licht recognizes her as Sona, but just then she shoots Jael in the abdomen. Jael falls lifelessly. Sona, the ace of pursuit, reveals her intention to eliminate everyone in town, not trusting anyone. She fires relentlessly. Licht tries to stop her, but Sona grabs him, expressing longing. Despite Licht's pleas, she insists on following his past order to eliminate obstacles. Bullets track Licht, evading his defenses, crushing his spine. Hina rushes to help, but soldiers restrain her and Nana. Sona threatens a child, urging Licht to revert to his old self to save them. She hints at the potential tragedy. Unable to keep his promise, Licht watches helplessly as Sona orders the child's execution and flies away. When Sona looks back, all the soldiers are down. Licht vows to end her. Nana pleads with him to stop, but he ignores her. Threatened with Hina's life, Licht reminds her of their conversations about his true motives. He admits his goal, to take everything from the nation. Sona was excited to see the mask of the commander she's been longing to see and begged him to end her now. Licht reminded her to say the 2 words needed for 2 aces to fight, so Sona said she will bet all of her stars, and Licht agreed to bet all of his. The all then began coming from the ground to surround them, and Sona began firing towards Licht. He leaped towards her and continued trying to pierce through her bullet storm. But as he struggled, Hina noticed that Sona's count was 32,000, much higher than Licht's. Her bullets finally pierced his armor and sent him crashing against the building. Hina was ready to run to save him, but Pella told her to calm down. Ever since his fight with Jael, he noticed that something was odd. He was fighting a man with double his count, yet Licht still managed to hold him off, so he must be hiding his true powers. Licht sees the tomato sauce covering his hand and draws it on his face. After standing up, he unleashes true power and a red aura emanates to the heavens. His count skyrockets, and Nana explains that this is the real power hidden within an ace, allowing his count to go all the way up to 57,000. This was the pure bloodlust Sona had been seeking, but as she was ready to fire, she noticed he had disappeared and began quaking in fear. Every single time she turns around, she realizes he isn't anywhere to be seen. Still, she thinks her bullets will continue following him, but sees her bullets being deflected by pure wind. He flashes behind her and begins speeding towards her relentlessly. Nana screams at everyone to get away from him, and as he continues powering up, his aura begins to turn into a purple hue. This was the secret personality hidden within him, and it is only released by the intent to kill. By Sherman, he leaps towards Sona to annihilate her, and none of her bullets are even capable of leaving a scratch. With all his power, he slashes towards Sona, sending her crashing into the building. Her count begins falling all the way to 16,000, and Nana reveals that she was also under the control of a personality. She struggles to wake up and is shocked to see the weapons surrounding her. She was one of the weakest people that never fired at anyone until the end of the war. Nana reveals Licht tells her to quit being a useless Four Eyes as always, but Lin tries preventing him from attacking. However, Licht asks them if they're his enemies, saying he will eliminate anyone who is his enemy. The only thing that overflows his mind is the desire to annihilate his enemies. But Hina runs to hug him, begging him to return back to his old self. He thinks that she must be another enemy, but before he was able to enter, Sona fired at him and told him she was the real enemy. Licht dropped Hina and began walking towards Sona, and as he picked her up and was ready to end her, Sona wished he would touch her once more like he used to in high school. As he slashed down, Jael appeared to prevent him from ending her. Licht wondered if this man was his enemy and slashed down towards him, but a golden light blinded all of them. The shockwave of the attack sends Jael falling down, and as Licht attempted a slash pushing down towards him, Jael blocked him with a single iron from his finger. This iron is his conviction, Jael stated, and since Licht lacked conviction, he told Licht that he would never be able to pierce through it and sent an iron pillar to crush him down. Licht struggles to get back up, saying his war won't be over until every single enemy is eliminated, because then he will be able to save the rest. Jael thinks his words are admirable and pledges to follow his convictions and treat his opponent with the respect he deserves, so he takes out a glove and wears it, revealing his true power. Licht tries rushing forward and attempts to parry against the Iron God, slashing the axe away. He rushes closer and manages to fend off all of Jael's attacks, but with a powerful swing, he shoots Licht into the air and crushes him down. He kicked Licht's mask off and asked him if he was awake. All of his friends began running towards him, and Licht apologized for scaring him. Sona came to apologize, but Jael spat tomato sauce after eating too much pasta and collapsed. Hina was glad that her man was back. The next day, the All Thing begins touching the girls inappropriately, but Jael enters the room to interrupt it, saying he is here to eliminate Licht for attacking the All Thing. However, Nana tells him to stop being ridiculous for trying to follow orders and eliminate the single man who tried to protect others. Jael comes to his senses, and Nana is glad to have found the single man who has stood up to him in the last 300 years. So to thank him, along with everyone in this room, for believing in him, she goes on to show them the secret she has hidden up her sleeve and reveals her ace status with the white star on her face. She warns them that this is not a dream because if they aren't alive in this world, they will unalive in the real world, and sends them 300 years into the past in front of a high school where they see Licht when he was a teenager. As they walked through the academy, everyone stared at them as if they were strangers. Suddenly realizing they were in the past, Jill urged them to find Licht. Hina thought she saw Licht, but he looked different. In a hall, a big guy named Takachura scared Hina, and when Lin confronted him, he pushed her away. Jill intervened, dodging his punch but realizing his magic didn't work here. As Takachura threatened Sona, another guy named Takakazi tried to stop him. When Jill stepped in, Blake appeared. The commander announced they were in a military school and would soon go to war. Ferenda, a lieutenant, revealed they were losing the war. The commander threatened them, but students laughed at him. He shot at them, causing chaos. When Hina fell, Jill tried to help but was stopped by a boy. Licht intervened, pretending to joke, but it didn't work. Ferenda stopped the chaos, revealing the gunshot paint. The commander threatened them again. In the cafeteria, Hina thanked Licht for his support. The next day, Jill wondered why they were sent here. In the library, Phil explained the All thing fell into this world years ago, a mystery. The commander explained it came during earlier wars, built with advanced technology. The next day in class, the commander announced that the major would be their new instructor. As the major arrived, he said that everyone would be given 2 stars and would have to acquire 8 additional stars for a promotion into the army. However, if they lost all their stars, they would be kicked out of the school. Additionally, there were only 2 ways of gaining a star. They could either win a contest or challenge a rival to a fight, where the winner would take all of his stars. With everyone having received their own stars, Licht realized that the major left none for him due to their conflict from the previous day. He told him that if he was looking to remain at the school, he had to steal someone else's stars within a few days. In the girls' room, they decided to help Licht in finding a star since he had no intention of remaining at the school or joining the army, as he was merely sticking around for his friend Takakazi, whom he was hoping to convince from joining the war. The following day in class, the girls threatened to destroy Licht for staring at them while in the bath, but Hina was more concerned about keeping him at the academy. All of a sudden, a student told them that their lockers had all been raided, and their stars were stolen. Arriving amidst the chaos, suspicions fell on Licht for stealing their stars, given his lack of one. Hina stepped in to defend him. Discovering Takachura taking stars from Sona, tension escalated. Takachura demanded his own stars and resorted to threats, leading Takakazi to reluctantly comply. Jill confronted Takachura, but Takakazi intervened, pleading for mercy. Lin's challenge to the brute was quickly shut down by Phil. Following Jill's lead, others began sharing their stars. Hina offered Licht a star, but he declined, showing no interest in staying at the academy. Takakazi's selfless act of giving away his star prompted Phil's suggestion to reclaim them from the bully. Takakazi confided in Licht about joining the army to support his starving family. Licht confronted Takachura for the stolen stars but faced aggression. Jill stepped in to confront Takachura, but their confrontation was interrupted by the major. The truth came to light as Licht was revealed as the thief. Despite his plea, the major denied Licht entry into the army and commended Jill for his bravery. In a compassionate act, Licht chose to remain at the school to ensure Takakazi's family would have sustenance. He proposed avoiding fighting for army promotions to avoid death in the war. The next day, Licht heard the commander wanted to punish him for peeking into the ladies' bath. He denied it but offered to take the blame for everyone. Takakazi, unwilling to report him, accepted his repentance promise. That night, Licht rushed to the bath, but found angry women who attacked him. They'd switched sides and Licht fell for it. As the girls left, Licht was caught by the commander, who punished everyone by sending them into the forest. In the forest, the girls blamed Licht, kicking him. When Jill suggested making a fire, the girls went for water, but Licht tripped them. Ikanos said joining the army was to protect her family. The major appeared, suggesting an endless army to avoid war, cheered by the girls. Jill suspected the major's secrets. He followed him to a secret lab. Inside, the major discussed stopping the war, rejecting experiments on students. He then experimented with a rat, using the ballot. It glowed and caused chaos, freezing it. Jill panicked until a girl, Nada, appeared. She explained she was from 300 years ago, warned by future Nana. She gave Jael a drive to understand his mission. She refused to leave, fearing altering the future. Jael left but was confronted by the commander, who aimed a gun at him, sentencing him to death. Jael knocked the gun away and aimed for his opponent's midsection, but the commander blocked him, calling him slow and kicking him back. Slamming the gun against Jael's head, the commander advised him to make new friends and learn to outsmart them to improve his fighting skills. When Jael tried to attack again, the commander saw through his plan, and Jael suddenly realized the commander was his real father in his own world. Facing him, Jael introduced himself and revealed he was from the future, hoping to alter it. Impressed, the commander invited him to visit the next day. The following day, the commander took them to a deserted area where hungry people quickly gathered, desperate for food. When the commander fired his gun, they paused, but a young boy begged Lynn for food, saying his mother was too weak to move. Lynn offered her snack, but the commander snatched it, fearing the starving crowd would harm the boy. He urged the boy to eat before his mother, but the boy couldn't leave her alone and ran off. Threatening the hungry crowd, the commander prevented them from pursuing. He told Jael changing the future was futile when the present was already troubled. Back at school, Hina suggested rescuing Licht before he was experimented on, but Phil dismissed the idea. Jael proposed focusing on improving their own world instead. During their regular morning jog the next day, Jael challenged the commander to a spar, swiftly attacking and stealing his cigarette. Angered, the commander launched a flurry of punches, evading Jael's moves like a skilled boxer. The major arrived, introducing a new training program and distributing weapons. The next morning, they enjoyed leisure time on the beach. The major announced a game. They had to snatch each other's flags to win, armed with water guns. But Licht proposed ditching the weapons, believing they could talk their way out of conflicts. When the game started, they ran off with their flags pursued by the other team. Exhausted, Licht sneaked back to grab their flag. In the next round, they faced a new team led by Takachura and repeated their strategy. But Takachura had their flag and refused to let them win, attacking them instead. Licht lured him into the mountains, but Takachura cornered him. However, Takachura fell into a ditch as he charged, letting Takakazi claim his flag. That night, they celebrated their victory and named Licht their leader. Meanwhile, in a secret lab, the commander learned a team member died on a mission. Verenda suggested experimenting on the students before it was too late, but the major disagreed and froze her with ice spikes. Verenda argued that creating super rats was pointless, and the students were their best hope. The next day, the major called Licht to his office, planning to use him as a lab subject. However, when the students were informed, they asked for the surgery to be cancelled. But Verenda told them that it was the only way to win the war. Lynn asked Licht why he agreed to be their lab rat, so he told her that he was hoping to save lives in the war. That night, Hina suggested that they stop the surgery from happening. But Jael believed that the entire future would be rewritten by that single act and would erase their city from existence. The following morning, they decided to bid him goodbye, worried that they may never see him again. As he was walking off, Lynn hurried to him, but decided to let him leave. In the class, Hina suggested that they stay with Licht after his surgery and help him in the war so he wouldn't become the Terminator in their world. Jael agreed with her plan and thought that they had a chance of stopping him from wearing masks in the future. Suddenly, they saw helicopters flying towards the school, and immediately they launched a missile at them, blowing up the school. Before long, soldiers raided the school, looking to annihilate everyone in sight. Takachura pounded one soldier into the ground and told Soma to rescue herself and annihilate them all, but she was too afraid to move. So the dude grabbed her and began firing at them. At the same time, a smoke bomb exploded before another set of soldiers, and Jael ran through the smoke, punching two of them, while Taikikase slashed the last one. Two enemies appeared in the smoke, but the commander ended them with a shot, allowing the students to escape. In the school, Faraday informed the commander that Licht was about to pass away from the surgery as they had lost power. So the students offered to find the backup generator. As they ran through the corridor, they came across an enemy. The commander ended him with several shots when another appeared. Takikase hurried to slay him, and the commander shot the last one outside. The commander fired at more enemies and ran across to the next building. As Akanas fought with a soldier, another shot her on the leg, but a student flew in with a punch to the enemy before getting blasted with several shots. Hina decided to treat his wound and told the boys to find the generator in another section of the school. The commander threw a board outside the window, but as it fell, bullets riddled it immediately. Realizing that they could lose their lives while trying to find the generator, the commander decided to distract the enemies. But as the students ran off, a missile was launched at him, and it blew up the room. Meanwhile, inside the lab, Licht finally woke up and noticed that his hair looked different. The major handed him a sword, telling him that it has the power of a ballot, but would only unleash its power after he decides what would be his count. When Licht told him that he had never used a sword, the major told him that the sword would make him the greatest fighter in the world. Outside the school, as the soldiers prepared to end Hina and her friends, a mighty light crashed behind them. When the dust cleared away, they found Licht crashed into a wall. As they shot at him, Licht noticed that the bullets were moving slowly, so he began hitting them away. However, when the soldiers stopped firing, he realized that he was moving too fast for the bullets. He began walking towards them, but as he noticed that his friends had been slain and wounded, he flew at a flash and crashed into their helicopters. As he blocked their bullets, he slashed at the lead soldier, causing the ground to erupt. After a little struggle, he pushed him off and struck him with his sword. With the enemies defeated, the students all gathered around him, happy to see him again. But before long, the soldiers approached them, and as they threw their vests to the ground, they threatened to ice-kite everyone alongside themselves. However, Licht snatched the detonator and crushed it to pieces. Desperate to make another impression, the lead soldier told him that the school was rigged with explosives and threatened to eliminate everyone by merely commanding an explosion. Licht was afraid that he would lose his friends to another attack, so he drew his sword, looking to frighten him into surrendering. But the man was unfazed. In this city, their annihilation merely guaranteed that a few more people would have an extra ration of food to live on, and as a result, they considered their annihilation the bravest thing in the world. As he began counting down, Tekike started rushing towards him with his sword, but Licht slayed the man in a flash, leaving everyone in shock. With Hina and her friends having teleported from the future to stop this very moment from happening, they were shocked to watch the past repeat itself before their own eyes. After a moment, Licht hurried away, but Hina ran after him and soon found him throwing up, wrecked by the guilt of his action. As she tried consoling him, a mysterious light surrounded her and her friends, and she soon realized that Nana was about to teleport them back to the future. Before her eyes, Licht picked his sword and vowed to become the human Terminator. And as he said those words, a star appeared on his sword, marking it for his count. Desperate to make an impression, Hina flew at him with a kiss, telling him to never forget her, as she would be rejoining him in the future to carry his babies. With these words, she vanished before him into a colorful light, as the remaining students watched the others vanish. Licht suddenly appeared, claiming they came from the future. That day, a terrible war erupted, cities fighting to be the last standing on Earth. Amid widespread hunger, Licht resolved to shield his friends from the conflict, facing the enemy alone. When he returned to school, he distanced himself, haunted by his actions in battle. Nana befriended him, and they bonded over books. She considered him like a brother, and eagerly awaited his company each day. However, over time, Licht changed, bearing scars from battles and becoming a different person. Determined to end the war, he donned a mask and continued fighting relentlessly. Eventually, his friends, inspired by his bravery, asked to undergo the same experiment as him to support him. Only 4 of them were successful: Takakaze, Takachura, Sona, and the commander. When Licht left for battle, Takakaze and Sona offered to accompany him, but he threatened them and went alone. In a meeting, Verenda proposed invading enemy countries to secure resources, and the major approved, sending Licht's friends to war. Upon hearing this, Licht reacted violently, injuring Sona. In response, his friends chose to stay out of the war, hoping for Licht's return to his former self. Years later, the war ended, and with all 7 ballots in hand, the major reshaped the world, raising islands into the sky. However, this drained resources from the lower Earth, leaving its inhabitants weakened and unable to challenge those above. Years passed, and the population grew, oblivious to the world below and the floating city's mystery. Ruled by the All-Thing, everyone received numbers to ensure ceaseless labor. Those without numbers faced starvation in the lower Earth, kept hidden by illegal floating objects. The 7 ballots maintained the island's levitation. Without them, their world would collapse. Takakaze once stole a ballot, believing it wrong to ignore the lower Earth's plight. Licht, however, swiftly killed him, realizing his monstrous nature. His guilt drove him to seclusion, joined only by Nana, who remained in the lower world to care for children. With little food, they chose to leave for a time. After a century of silent travel, Licht still wore his mask, haunted by his past. In the 300th year, he decided to destroy the islands as penance. Nana hoped Hina and her friends could change Licht. Yet they learned the past couldn't be altered. As they returned, Hina sought to connect with Licht, hoping to spark his memory by undressing before him on a cliff. However, he covered her with his cloak and told her that he was too old for her. At Nana's camp, the group began drinking the intoxicant juice as a celebration for their return from the past. But all of a sudden, Jael punched Licht to the ground and showed him Nana's video. During their 300 years of traveling together, she had stayed by his side for all those years, dreaming about a Cinderella wedding with him. However, he had been so deep into guilt that he never seemed to notice her presence. But at that moment, Licht realized that he had been rude and immediately held her in his arms. He told her that he was the saddest person in the world due to the haunting memories of all his friends, but was happy that she stayed by his side and would not allow him to off himself that night. As she slept by his side, he was happy to have her with him. By the following morning, Nana decided to drink more intoxicant juice, but Licht told her that he was going into the city. However, Hina met him in the forest and asked him why he was always running away from her. She wished to stay by his side forever, but was disappointed that he didn't want her beside him. Licht told her that he met her mother 300 years ago, when he was in the academy, and that the ballad given to her by her mother was a powerful weapon that could destroy their world. However, her mother was not an ace, so he wondered how she was alive for all those years. He wondered if she knew who her father was, but she didn't. So he told her that her father was Takakaze. Hina's mother had been his lover at the time, but he had slain him when he stole the ballad from the major. He was convinced that he couldn't be the same person her mother would ask her to find, having known that he slayed her father every time he looked at her. He was haunted by the memory of it, and his guilt made him want to stay away from her forever. When she began feeling dizzy from a sleeping pill he had put in her, he told her that he was going to destroy the entire army and was unwilling to put anyone else into danger. So he carried her to Nana's camp, where everyone else had also passed out on the table. However, as he began to leave, Jael asked him why he was trying to steal the remaining ballots, since he knew that the islands only existed because of these ballots, and without them, their world would be destroyed. So Licht told him that it was his own way of atoning for his sins, since he caused the islands to exist in the first place. However, Jael would not agree with him, so they faced off threatening to annihilate each other. But then they began walking away, since Licht was determined to destroy the islands, and Jael believed that it was his duty to eliminate him the next time they crossed paths in battle. The next morning, Hina and her friends discovered that Licht had gone into the city to attack the entire army, so they hurried to find him around the city. A mighty force knocked Licht to the ground, and Takachura appeared before his eyes, having possessed the ability to control gravity. He told him that he had imagined squashing him for 300 years and unleashed his power towards him, causing large boulders to fall on top of him. A while later, Hina and her friends reached the ruins and found him unconscious. Soon after, they got surrounded by soldiers from the city's army. Jael decided to confront his foster father, who was the academy's commander. When Jael's assistant said his dad was having breakfast, Jael burst in and challenged him to a fight. Jael tried to punch him, but his dad caught his hand and threw him away. Jael tried again, but got punched. Despite being stomped on, Jael managed to hit back. He hoped his academy training would help him in the future, and it did. Jael summoned a metal creature, but it got destroyed. The commander used his powerful ring to burn Jael's uniform off, knocking him out. The commander then shared his tragic past with Jael, explaining why he couldn't seek revenge. Hina and her friends woke up in a cell underground, questioned by Takachura about their trip to the past. The major appeared, revealing Licht's dark destiny. Takachura, feeling jealous, attacked them. He believed only war veterans deserved special powers and wanted to eliminate the others. He freed Hina and her friends but got angry when he saw a special item Hina had. He threatened them, thinking they wanted to destroy the island. When Lin tried running away, Takachura forced her to the ground again. So in hopes of distracting him, Phil grabbed his leg while Hina held on to him, telling Lin to find Licht immediately. Takachura smacked Phil into the wall and held Hina in his grip, threatening to end her at that moment. However, Lin took advantage of his distraction and hurried away. But the human wreck threw Hina aside, arriving outside. He began summoning rocks from the ground and launched them towards her. The rock struck her shoulder and slit her leg, but she would not stop. However, when the ugly bully launched another set of rocks at her, she was impaled by one of them but managed to ride off. Satisfied with the damage, Takachura returned to the underground and told Hina that Lin was sure to pass out within a few minutes and that they could start preparing for her funeral. Hina believed that she would survive, so Takachura promised to spare them if she returned within a few hours. And as he unleashed his power on the wall, it crumbled, revealing Nana on the other side. Meanwhile, Lin fell off her horse, having lost too much tomato sauce, and started crawling towards Licht. He was still unconscious and looked like he was never going to wake up again. By that time, she tried to resuscitate him, afraid that he would remain unconscious for another couple of decades, and blew air into his mouth. However, having lost too much sauce, she became exhausted and passed out on his chest. As she lay there, memories flooding her mind, she felt regretful for not telling him she wanted to stay with him forever. She held on to hope that he would wake up and save their friends. Hours passed, and she woke to her city friends, relieved she was awake. But when she saw Licht still unconscious, tears welled up, and she walked away. The sun rose, casting a sense of doom, but just as she stumbled, Licht caught her. Meanwhile, Takachura prepared to attack her friends, but Licht intervened, crashing in with flames. Grateful, they saw Licht as their savior. Amidst the chaos, Licht apologized to Hina for avoiding her, confessing he wanted to be with her from the start. Delighted, she kissed him, dreaming of their future together, but Licht's focus was on the battle. As he readied himself, Takachura hurled rocks, but Licht dodged and fought back. Takachura fell, but Sona joined the fray, shooting at Licht. Dodging, Licht faced Takachura's magic again, but he managed to evade Sona's bullets and escape. Takachura shot his magic at Licht, pushing him back and making him fall. Sona tried to help by shooting, but Takachura stopped her and pushed Licht down again so Sona could shoot more. She told Licht she wanted to fight alongside him, but he left them all. Sona kept shooting at him angrily. Takachura blamed Licht for Sona's anger, but Licht thought he was trying to save her. Takachura tried to hurt Licht, but Nana protected him until Takachura pushed her away. Licht fought back, but Jael arrived and joined the fight. Sona shot at Jael, but he wasn't bothered. She kept shooting, tearing his clothes, but he kept coming. She panicked and shot at him with different guns, but he stopped her, reminding her of her past self. She cried. Takachura thought he was losing, so he attacked Jael, but Licht stopped him. They fought, exchanging punches until they were both hurt. Takachura had killed many brainwashed young fighters and feared more war if their islands were destroyed. Licht believed they should fight for survival. Takachura threatened to kill Licht, but Licht didn't back down. Takachura attacked, but Licht defended. Takachura tried powerful magic, but Licht dodged. Then Takachura tried a tornado, but Licht escaped, and Takachura was defeated. Licht woke up in a mysterious realm and found skulls all around him. When he tried to move, a strange mask appeared before his eyes, and he began hearing Takachura's voice. Takachura told him that he was at the end of a gravity pit and could never escape. At these words, more masks started appearing around him, all belonging to the Ace soldiers. They told him to end himself and ignore his plans for war. But he slashed one of the masks and watched it glue back. When he began slashing them all, he soon became tired as they all glued back immediately after. Realizing that he was truly trapped, he decided to give up. But at that moment, he heard Hina's voice. So he took his sword again, determined to escape from the realm. As he channeled a light through the sword, he began slashing all the masks and planted the sword into the skulls, destroying everything in his path. Meanwhile, in the real world, Takachura was ready to launch a blast at Hina. But his magic began to glow with a strange bright light, and as it exploded, Licht appeared before their eyes. After he told Takachura that he was determined to fight until the end, he launched a blast towards him, but he blocked it and slashed it away, rushing at him. He punched him right in the skull, causing him to fly into a wall. As he stood, he told Licht that the commander was holding 3 of the ballots, while the major was holding 4 ballots. And as he returned Hina's ballot, he began to leave, determined to stay away from Licht's war. A few days later, Licht visited Lin at the hospital. But by the time she opened her eyes, he was gone. As he was leaving, Phil appeared behind him with a sword, wondering how he knew that he could treat Lin when she was wounded. Licht told him that he knew all of his secrets, but decided to tell none of their friends, since the simp was merely interested in winning Lin's heart to himself. Licht foretold them that he would stop fighting to destroy their world. However, he believed that they were better off not depending on the power of the balance, since the Althin was becoming too powerful to control. He thought that the islands would be a better place if no one was getting sent into the abyss, and he decided that he would eliminate the Major and create a new world for everyone. As he said these words, Sona appeared above them, offering to join in their fight. As they traveled on a carriage to a different part of the islands, Hina promised to stay with Licht forever. She told him that ever since she got the ballot from her mother, she'd been looking for him and would never leave his side, so Licht promised to always protect her. She hugged onto him, saying that she'll be counting on him. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss out on any more of my recaps. Until next time, take care.